Hi, my name's Andy Hague, I'm the tax manager at Maple Accountants. The idea of this talk today is just to give a few details from behind the budget. So not the main headlines, but the parts that may affect our clients that they've not really thought about yet. So one of the things that was mentioned in the budget is VAT penalties. This is supposed to be being introduced in 2020, but we've now found out it might be 2021. To begin with, it's just VAT penalties, but after that it might then go to self-assessment penalties as well. So what the tax office are looking at doing is like a driving licence points type thing. You get 1 point for a late VAT return, that's fine, no penalties. When you get the second point, that's when you start getting the penalties with the tax office. There's a similar system to begin with now with the tax office. You can have one mistake a year. When you make your second mistake, you get penalised. The problem with this new system is that if you get 2 points over 2 years, you will get fined. It takes 24 months for the points to drop off your system. So you could miss a VAT return now, miss another one in 9 months' time, and you've then got to be clear for 2 years, 24 months, for these to drop off entirely. So we do get the odd client who submits a VAT return late and could be caught by these new set of rules. As I mentioned, this is supposed to be for self-assessment as well. Nobody knows how that's going to happen. At the minute, if you send a self-assessment tax return in late, you get a penalty. So if you're going to get one of the penalties free, the new system could be better than the existing one, as long as you don't get 2 penalties, and that's the key. The next thing that was mentioned is national living wage going up to £8.13. This is great for employees who are lower paid, which you think benefits everybody in the economy. But it's when you look at the wider picture. So you've got quite a few employers, Wetherspoons spring to mind, who have got a lot of people on the living wage. So the living wage is going up by about 5% in April next year. So Wetherspoon's employee costs are going to go up 5%. They've also got auto-enrolment for their pensions as well. So their total employee costs are going to go up by more than 5%. And the way to recoup that is to increase food, beer, whatever. So it's good when these things happen, but it does have other knock-on effects through the economy as well. There was another point raised where the government are again attacking landlords. At the moment, if you live in a property for say 5 years, rent it out for 5 years and sell it, you get the first 5 years are covered by principal private residence relief. Also as well, the last 18 months are given. So if you've owned this property for 10 years, 6.5 years of that falls out of the capital gains. At the same time as well, we've got something called lettings relief. It's calculated in different ways, but it could wipe out a gain of up to 40,000. So under the current system, you've got 6.5 years of the 10 years non-taxable, plus we can take another £40,000 off your capital gains. What the government have said is that from April 2020, they're reducing the principal private residence relief for the last 9 months, so it's not 18 months, it's only 9 months, and also changing the way in which lettings relief is given. You cannot claim it after that for a property which you've lived in for 5 years, rented out and lived elsewhere. You have also got to have lived in that property as well. So it's more for houses of multiple occupancy. There will be the odd client who's still entitled to this, but it will be very few of them. So capital gains tax is likely to increase for people who have lived in their own homes and then rented it out. The next point is the VAT threshold being frozen at 85,000. And this is being extended from April 2020 to April 2022, which is the best part of 3.5 years. Now, a lot of our clients registered for VAT, nothing they can do about it, they pay it. But we've got quite a few clients who earn just below the VAT threshold. And the problem for these people is they do deal with members of the public. One case that springs to mind, one of our clients has got a picture framing company. is always below the VAT threshold, £5,000 or £6,000 a year. So at the minute it's 85 and his turnover might be 80,000. Each year the threshold goes up, his turnover increases slightly, every year is going to be beneath it, which is absolutely great. The problem now is that the threshold is frozen for 3.5 years. Now, if you think his turnover might go up by 2 or 3% a year, 2 or 3 years' time he's going to have a problem and he will be hitting that threshold. So the idea then is that he either earns less money or we have to look at other ways around it. I've spoken to the client recently, and what we actually talk about is the different VAT schemes which might affect him. And we're looking at those and seeing which are the best ways. So we've got plans in place for 3 years' time, but it will have an impact on his business. One of the other areas that can be affected is B&Bs, furnished holiday lettings, things like that. People who either do a B&B at the seaside or they might have a holiday cottage which they let out. They are again liable to VAT. So if you've got a place at Whitby, Skegness, somewhere like that, where you let out 3 rooms, there's a good chance at the moment where you could be below the VAT threshold. But again, you fast forward 3.5 years. People have got to put the prices up because the prices of everything that they're paying for has gone up. So in 3.5 years' time, they could be at that threshold. And then people like me who go to Whitby, maybe Skeggy or whatever, instantly you're paying 20% more for a room. Now, for the larger places, which are already VAT registered, national chains and things like that, not an issue to them, but it's the smaller people who are going to be caught out by the threshold being frozen. There was other things mentioned in the budget that might affect some of our clients. The tax office are changing the rules with research and development, and they're making it more based on what the pay-as-you-earn is paid by the company. And it's to stop some of these businesses that just set up, whack through a load of costs, claim some quite good tax reliefs, and then close the company. So what the tax office are trying to do is to tie that in with how many people are employed and how much pay-as-you-earn that the company is paying over. And that depends on what R&D refunds the companies can actually get. The final one, which could be of a concern to some of our clients, is for contractors. And these are people who work for places like Next, Boots, Royce's, Bombardier. Now these firms only want to employ these people for a fixed term for a contract. So they don't want them to be employees and they won't let them be self-employed. These people have got to work through limited companies. Now the government changed the rules about 18 months ago for people who work in the public sector. So that's for hospitals, councils, the BBC. And they've changed it now so that these people are front-loaded with tax. And what the government is now looking at is that for people who work for these other businesses in the private sector, for them to be treated the same way. Now, hopefully, some of these multinational companies will get together and challenge this because it is only going under consultation with the tax office, and hopefully they'll be applying the rules correctly and these people will still be able to work through their own limited companies. Otherwise, there's a big potential for either a lot of these people to close the businesses, maybe move abroad because of the brain drain, because otherwise they're going to get taxed quite substantially. So that's just a few of the points on the budget and the thinking behind it. I hope you find it useful.